you very much, Mr. President, and good evening, afternoon to all of you. Indeed, it's been a while since I've been, well, I come here quite a lot now in a moment, but it's a while since I was in this building, and I've forgotten pomp and ceremony. Just for those of you who live a lot of it, let me just tell you, FYI, that's not what it's like back out there. Just so you know. Some things don't change in Durham, some do. The dun cow's still the same, Shakespeare is not. The magic of the town is still the same. The weather's still the same. But I don't ever remember there being It's a Knockout on Palace Green just before the June Ball and graduation. It's going to be quite a fun fight, literally, when they clear up that. It really is a tremendous pleasure. I was there, it was a great pleasure to be there last night as well. For those of you there, I attended the Lord O'Connor's talk because I wanted, A, you sort of like a political hero of mine, B, I wanted to get the measure of this, and I'm glad I did. It was, I thought he had a remarkable grasp of facts. Remarkable. Where he and I are going to differ now is I have not written any books, and therefore I'm not plugging a book. And therefore, as a consequence, I have a script. I put notes and he didn't, so I'm guilty, but that's just, you just have to tolerate that. The reason I got notes is that I put some thoughts together for you, as in this audience. Where are you in your lives? What's going on in the world? Where might some of my experiences may be helpful, may not. I'm not here to lecture or hector. I have political views. Most of you won't agree with them, that's cool. But I thought, well, the best I can do is be completely honest, and put some stuff out there, and you're at will to take, filter, and do what you like. As you just mentioned, and the other thing is, because I've got notes, I'm likely to be roughly on time, which means you've got a good chance of getting to the pub before last August. So I was at University College between 1984 and 87, history and politics. I was a terrible student, but I was really good at being a student. That's quite a distinction that I would draw. There are many things I do differently. I certainly would love to go back and do that degree again. But that's life. I then get into an advertising career for 30 years. And the reason I chose advertising is what I realised I like doing, and history and politics sort of nods to that, is storytelling. That's what I like. And you kind of end up saying, well, what careers would suit you? It could have been a barrister, it could be a teacher. I chose advertising. And it's not just storytelling for the sake of it, it's storytelling with a point, to an end. In the legal field is to get is to win the case, teachers is to try and fire up the theatre of the mind, the imagination, so you remember stuff. In advertising, it's advocacy. To make you feel different about a topic or brand than you currently do. And the golden rule of advertising is reason leads to conclusions, emotion leads to action. The biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life, including voting, are largely emotional, and the logic, the brain and your schooling tells you to backfill the emotion, backfill it with retrospective logic and reason. And of course I did that. When people buy a car, you think that's a rational decision? It's largely your life partner, your house. Most decisions are emotional because we're sentient beings. That's how we roll. And what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom, among other things, is we learn and communicate through stories. Because it triggers emotions, which triggers action. And that's sort of the core of advertising. So a 30-year career, done a startup, sold the startup, in reference to Drumming Gorilla, done some nice work, done some stuff we kind of thought was kind of good fun. Anyone seen that? Drumming Gorilla, yeah. So we shot that, because the client would never even buy that. It's for chocolate. There's no chocolate and there's no eating. There's no mention of it. So the only way to sell it was to shoot it. And we shot it at Abbey Road. And we were at studios. And the biggest expense, because it was on our cost, was we wanted to, you had to believe that was a gorilla. You had to believe it was a gorilla. If you thought it was a person in a gorilla suit, it doesn't work. So we hired, there's a film in the 80s called Greystoke, Tarzan. We hired the main ape in Greystoke. We had only ever played monkeys. He was the simian expert in the world, and that was our biggest expense. The problem was, which we hadn't thought through, was we couldn't play drums. So we spent so much time. We had like 6 hours to film, and we spent 4 of them doing drumming lessons. Anyway, by the by, it's a crazy. I tell that by way of saying it's a crazy business and a lot of fun, and sometimes when it works, it's magnificent. So we sold the company. I started at Saatchi UK as CEO, then CEO of Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and then latterly global CEO. And then I decided that I was deserving of a gap year, which is what I'm doing now. And what happens, and this is, here we go, here come the sprouts. What happens when you do nothing, and I know students are pretty good at doing nothing, Olympic or medal winning at doing nothing, but what happens is that nature abhors a vacuum. So there's no such thing as nothing. It doesn't exist. Nothing does not exist. Something fills it. It could be the pub, but usually it's other stuff. So as you mentioned, I work with the ATP, I work with the VNA actually as an advisor. I'm an investor and a founder of a small venture capital company, so meeting tech startups and other startups and assessing whether to invest in it or not. It's an interesting sort of snacking on bits and bobs. One of my bowls of crisps of snacking is I'm the chair designate, so I'll be soon to be announced as the chair of the Durham University Campaign Board, which is working with Andy Huston, who heads up the development team, sitting right there, and the Vice Chancellor and his broader team, trying to create a more robust and cogent alumni community, so that in order to, at a certain point when it's appropriate, that they give back. And why would anybody do that? Because where you're sitting here, and you may not feel this may not have clocked, you may not have clocked this yet, there's no reason why I should have yet, you will. You're sitting in a world-class place of learning, not quite a good university in North England, a world-class place of learning and a world-class experience. And there's something osmotic that happens here. There's something through osmosis that I only realised when I became the CEO of Saatchi and Saatchi London. I started to understand that whilst my degree was in history and politics, your degree might be archaeology or language or maths or this or that, my actual degree was leadership. The thing I took from here, weirdly, and I can't put my finger on exactly why or how, but that's what happens. And when I talk to my peers, they say exactly the same. And you'd be amazed, if you track alumni from Durham, you'd be amazed at how A, eclectic it is, and B, how successful they are. And when I say successful, I'm not talking money. I'll come on to money in a minute, it drives me crazy. Obsession with money. I'm talking about making a difference in the world. And that's a really important point. So you can take the boy or the girl out of Durham. It's kind of hard to take the Durham out of the boy or the girl, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the end game, why, is to inspire and nurture future leaders. Leadership is a central core theme of tonight, for those of you hard of hearing. It'll be a recurring, potentially repetitive theme, but inspiring and nurturing future leaders. This country, the world needs leaders today like never before, and this place is brilliant at nurturing future leaders. So the idea is to get people who've had that great experience to give back a bit, reciprocity, and that's what I'll be doing. So I visit here quite a lot, and I absolutely love it. So let's imagine like you're stepping into a career. Here we go. Bang, for those of you who are leaving this year. If you look up Wikipedia, right, definition of a career is an individual's metaphorical journey through learning, work, and other aspects of life. A metaphorical journey. When you talk to a lot of when I talk to a lot of undergraduates, I talk sometimes at the London Business School, at the LSE, at the Loughborough University. I generally get the response that a career is about a destination. I want to get to the top. Top of what? I want lots of money. As like an end point. But that's not what a career is. A career is a journey, it's a continuum, it's an unfolding narrative. And there's a sense of people saying, I need to have my career planning. I'm here to tell you, after 30 years of having a career, that is an entirely specious notion. Because, as General Eisenhower said, plans are useless, planning is everything. And that's from a warfare standpoint. You have a plan, but when a missile comes over and whacks you over here, you change the plan there and then. Or as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Careers are like that, you just don't know. So this sense of, I am preordaining my destiny to be here, and that is my career plan, and by goodness, I'm sticking to it. Well, good luck and Godspeed, because the world's a very, very different place from that. My dad did that, you know, your grandparents probably did that. It's not what's happening today. It's much more snacking than one meal. And money becomes the outcome, not the point. And if you go back to the reason leads to conclusions, emotion leads to action, my advice to you, and by all means ignore it, my advice to you would be, when you're choosing a job, you go, okay, what's the package? How much money? What are the benefits? Do I get a nice place to sit? What are the practical, tangible things I get from this? Good prospects, yeah? Good prospects? Here are three other much more important questions. Do I like the people? Do I believe in the company's purpose, its cause? Do you think they can hear me and they turn up the microphone? Do I believe in the purpose or the cause? And, most importantly, does it feel right? Just that intangible thing, does it feel right? Because here's the thing, if it feels right, and you believe in the cause and purpose, good, and you like the people, good, you'll probably have quite a good time. And you know what? You'll probably be quite good at it. And if you're really quite good at it, you'll probably get some money. If your start point is, oh, loads of money, I know so many people who have been stuck in middle management, the vortex of middle management, who hate their jobs and always hated their jobs, but believe that's just the way the world is. That's a nonsense. It's a choice. It's a choice to get caught in that vortex. So please go with your heart. That's my little pitch for you at the moment. My proudest moment wasn't anything to do with my own success. It wasn't that we were drumming gorilla at one of the Grand Prix in Cannes Advertising Festival. It wasn't selling a company to a holding company where we did make some money. It wasn't any of those things. My proudest moment was one of our failures. And so to give you an insight into the world of advertising, we deal in ideas. And ideas, if you look at the thousands of years of humanity history, ideas are far more powerful than any military hardware. And we had our purpose at Saatchi was very simply, nothing is impossible. That ideas can just change everything upside down. Today's impossible, it's tomorrow's normal. You just look at the rate of change of everything and it's a cliche. My office in Tel Aviv in Israel came to me and said, well, if our mantra is nothing is impossible, we want a Nothing is Impossible creative brief, and we want the whole network to work on it, because we live in Tel Aviv and we don't have gas masks and shelters in case that awful thing happens in the war against Palestinians. And it's a crazy war, it's got to win. It's got to win. You must be able to come up with an idea. So we put the brief out, I agree. And the idea, the winning idea, was very, very simple. It was blood donation. So Israelis give blood to the Palestinians, Palestinians give blood to the Israelis. Blood is very, very symbolic in both cultures. And on a very basic level, I cannot shoot you, you are my blood. There's something happening there. We partnered with an unbelievably inspiring organisation who were parents who had lost children in the conflict. Can you imagine that? From both sides, who'd come together and quite literally said, oh, enough already. Okay, enough. Can we please grow up? And so they took this blood donor, together we took it to the United Nations, to Hillary Clinton, who at the time was Secretary of State. And then we did a blood donation event at the United Nations. And we did one at Saatchi's with the ambassador of the Israeli ambassador and representatives of the Palestinian government. And we did a lot of stuff. And we failed because our ambition was to create a movement, really create a movement. And I think if we'd done it today with the social media thing, we might have had a better chance. But then, for whatever reason, we failed. We did win a gold medal for peace from the UN, but that doesn't matter. We made some sort of impact. But failure is a strange concept. It's a really good, you've got to really embrace failure. Because unless you're prepared to fail, you're unlikely to succeed. And, the way I look at it is, if by doing the stuff we did with the UN, and we did get some PR, and it was on telly all over the place, not least in the two countries involved, it had quite a lot of coverage. So if as a consequence of that, and I can never measure this, it's not empirical, but if one bullet fewer was fired, and if you think the destruction one bullet can create to a person, a family, a community, then if one bullet fewer, then we actually succeed. And at least we slept at night knowing we had a go. Now that is, without question, my proudest moment in advertising, because it was taking an idea out into the world. I've got to fix this. I've got to do it, at least try. Now, different people are wired differently. You could have someone else in, I know, an oil trader, a coal trader actually, the world's leading coal trader, who will just say to you, no, it's all about making £100 million. That's all I'm interested in. And you go, fine. But it's, so career management and decision is about know thyself, as Shakespeare would say, or as Oscar Wilde would say, be yourself, everyone else is tick. Because once you work out what really makes you tick, you are much more likely to be successful in your chosen career. So let's just, again, I'm going to pull focus a bit now. So what kind of world are you entering? What are you inheriting? What mess are you there? And if you were to read looking at the news agenda and what's going on around you could, with some justification, conclude that we live in some sort of dystopian nightmare. I'll start with the geopolitical climate. I could go on for ages on that, but I just say two words: Singapore circus. For those of you who've been following the news the last 48 hours, that's world politics. Lord knows. Godspeed. Fake news, mistrust, as I said, lack of leadership. Aristotle wrote a book 1,000 years ago called The Art of Rhetoric, and in it he coined the expression which is used a lot now in political circles, which you're probably aware of, which is campaigning is poetry, governing is prose. And what's interesting about an algorithmic world is that prose has just been shuffled off to the backwater because it's not as interesting to read online, and everything is campaigning. So Trump hasn't stopped campaigning. Look at Brexit. That's not prose. There's no narrative. It's just a series of pointless soundbits for tomorrow's news agenda in a sort of echo chamber world. And if you like, one of the byproducts of the whole social media thing is the echo chamber has replaced leadership. I know that's maybe a contentious thing to say, but Brexit means Brexit, strong and stable leadership, America first. Those are not narratives. That's bluster. So the world has gone slightly mad, and the foundations of democracy, are being properly challenged. Not irreversibly, I think, but they're being challenged. So let's look at technology now. I reference social media. Amazon, Facebook, Google, Tencent, Alibaba, Apple, and the rest. Let's take Amazon. I kind of like Amazon. I think Jeff Bezos is kind of cool in a weird way. He started, he was a hedge fund manager in New York. He just proposed to his girlfriend. She was a hedge fund manager. And he said, I have this great idea, let's move to Seattle, which, from the West Coast, Washington State, because Washington State's got the best book distribution centre. And I have this idea that online books might be a really cool idea. And you've got to have a spine to do that. That's proper entrepreneurialism, just to up and go. And he asked his parents and his friends for $300,000 seed capital. And half of them said no, and half of them said yes. The ones who said yes, I think made in excess of 10 million each. And the ones who said no are really grumpy about it. But Amazon today, right, its market value is bigger, right? It's bigger than the combined market value of Walmart, Sainsbury's, Tesco, M&S, Costco, Sports Direct, Macy's, Target, TJ Maxx, Sears, and JCPenney. Combined. It operates in 9 of the 10 biggest industries in the US. Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man, worth $130 billion. This is a bit I didn't know. You might know this, I didn't. That Amazon Web Services controls 45% of the world's cloud computing capacity. You know that? It provides infrastructure for thousands of organisations, including Netflix, the CIA, and the UK's Ministry of Justice. You know that? No, I didn't know. It was starting to replace brands, so what it does is it sees what sells well, replicates them, and then sells them for a lot less, and then pushes its product on diminishes the brands. And that might be good. You might say it's good for consumers, lower prices, but it's not good for brands. It certainly isn't very good for treating its staff, that's for sure. A few years ago there was Crygate. I don't know if you followed that. The New York Times ran an article saying that people were known to be sitting at their desk regularly, could be sitting at their desk crying, and the legal counsel came in, tried to get all heavy with the New York Times. They go, everyone's crying, what are you talking about? And so this thing, they just ran the story again and again and again. And more recently, 2 weeks ago, the GMB union in this country is taking legal action against 3 delivery companies because they're saying the drivers are self-employed, which means that's code for we don't get sick pay, you don't get any holiday pay, we can pay you below the minimum wage. They avoid tax by any legal means possible. Apparently that's fine. I don't think so, but a lot of people think it's cool. There was a tech conference in London about 8 months ago, and it had an art installation. An art installation was a performance artist, an actress, and she read out the Amazon terms and conditions. 6 hours. 6 hours. Oh yeah. Now, you know, the quid pro quo with the unbelievable utility, world-class, quick zone, what I want overnight, cheapest is fantastic, serving the customer, I want it here right now, it's the equivalent of Tinder, it's fantastic. Fine, but at what cost, I ask you? At what broader cost, and how sustainable is it? I'll come back to that shortly. The changes to advertising of all this stuff, particularly in the tech thing, is being huge as well. So, you know, tech and analytics has really driven the transformation of advertising, which has moved from communications really to customer experience programs, which is that's a highfalutin way of saying it's from storytelling to transaction, because we can be far more, they call it mass personalization. So it used to be broadcast, and now it's mass personalization. Again, it all sounds good and proper, and they say, oh, we've got dynamic creativity, which is code for, we'll take a really quite rubbish piece of content, and then we'll do 200,000 variants of it in over the space of 5 seconds, based on geofencing, based on what we know about you, what you search, what words you've used, what so goes on. It's really clever and really boring, but it's quite effective. But that's what's happening in advertising, and I sort of liken it to, some of you might remember, if you like music, when techno was suddenly really cool. Remember that? And then everyone said, well, this is the future. And they go, no, actually, no, it's really quite shit. So what we'll do is we'll go back to songwriting and ballads and Ed Sheeran and all the rest of this kind of stuff. Anyway, I think that theatre of the mind will reappear in advertising. It's just going through a little temporary glitch at the moment. There's a guy called Jaron Lanier, who you might have read about. He's been in the press lately. He was an Atari. He started his career in the Atari game console maker, which is where Steve Jobs started his career. As a sidebar. And he sold the tech company to Google in 2006, and he currently consultant at Microsoft. He's just published a book with the unambiguous title, 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. And he has a big rant about social media, but on specific to advertising, this is what he says about advertising, which I think he kind of captures it rather well. He says, everyone who is on social media is getting individualized, continually adjusted stimuli without a break so long as they use their smartphones. What might once have been called advertising must now be understood as continuous behavior modification on a titanic scale. Continuous behavior modification. Now, algorithms are quite early in their algorithmic system is quite early in its development and will improve. But right now, what it lacks is context. It's the equivalent of introducing a friend to your parents or your grandparents for the first time, and they start swearing outrageously. They've lost the concept of the context in which they are. They're inappropriate. And there's been some awful instances, and there's one that breaks my heart around Grenfell Towers, where while the news feeds on Facebook are coming in, literally live, of a poor woman throwing a baby out of the window, hoping someone might catch it. While that was happening, on the side, there was an ad for a snack bar featuring little children with wings. I kid you not, it makes you want to weep. It is a criminal offence. But hey, it's not a person, it's a robot, it's brilliant, we'll fix that. Thanks for that. On a much more petty, trivial level, my surname is Senior. It always has been from the day I was being born, so I haven't always been old. But since algorithmic system has kicked in, I get inundated with ads for hearing aids, care homes, and incontinence pads. I mean, I know it's the word Senior, it's my name, you muppet. So there's a lot of stuff to do. Netflix have got it right. They call their algorithmic thing a machine learning taste communities. We're all part of a machine learning taste community, but they do it really well. There's a guy called Tristan Harris, who used to be a Googler, which means he went to Google. He founded the Center for Humane Technology, and he observes that with 2 billion people, Facebook has the same number of followers today as Christianity does today. And his observation or point about Facebook was, he observes that he compares Facebook to an omnipotent priest who takes confession from 2 billion people, then sells those deep, dark secrets to the highest bidder. You get this point. Those of you who follow the news of Cambridge Analytica, do you remember them? They got Facebook data and they sent micro-targeted messages anti-Clinton, pro-Trump in the States and anti-Remain, pro-Brexit in the UK. Now the government thinks that's illegal. The company's been closed down and they've started criminal charges against the CEO. Apparently we think that's bad. So how come brands are doing it every day? The only difference being they're paying Facebook for that data. Apparently that's fine. Is it fine? I know the argument, quid pro quo, yeah, you get all this service for free, somebody's going to give you. Is it fine? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's not well I want to be in. So that's quite miserable. But the truth is, it's not a dystopian like that, whether that's a geopolitical or the technology thing. What actually is happening is you're entering the workplace at possibly one of the most exciting times in the history of exciting times. And I believe that profoundly. Partly because there's so many easy things to fix, and there's so much to be excited about. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons to be cheerful. The first, and this is like the sort of slightly obvious point, but I'll make it anyway, which is technology and social media, of course, will continue to act as a force for good in many, many respects, and will do some more and more as it gets regulated. We might have seen 3,000 Googlers demonstrating because they found out that Google was developing AI military weaponry. And so Google said, okay, sorry, yeah, what we'll do is we're going to set up a moral framework around what we do. Whether they do or not is another matter, but I think some form of regulatory common sense is going to come into the picture. And you have to remember Arab Spring, you can't forget #MeToo, gender, race, sexual equality, incredibly important moments in time, and the power of social media in making this happen. In the last 18 months, many, many governments have been held to account, most recently Najib Razak in Malaysia, but also Peru, Romania, South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Guatemala, and South Korea. Big, important stuff is happening, and it's good. And when you look at emerging technologies with a positive lens, with a rose-tinted lens, through a rose-tinted lens, you could easily conclude that AI and quantum computing, generative computing, and intuitive computing are going to make things better. There's a tech startup, for those of you who are Star Trek fans in the room, you might have never heard of Star Trek, I don't know, but those of you who are Star Trek fans in the room, a tech startup friend of mine referenced it the other day, saying the tech industry is moving from Mr. Spock to Captain Kirk, which basically means from slightly on the spectrum to with some EQ, which is a good thing. So that's the first reason to be cheerful. Second reason to be cheerful, and the most important one, is that we are sentient beings. We are. There's irrefutable. There's a guy called E.O. Wilson, you will not have heard of him. He is the world's expert on ants. Little ants. Ants have been around for 100 million years. We have been around for 10,000. When it comes to evolution, they're all over it. They get evolution. There's over 10,000 species. But the thing about ants is they house their nests wherever they are in the world. The Amazon, wherever they are. Their nests are absolutely identical. They're not similar, or a bit like, a few similarities. They're identical. Hasn't changed. And E.O. Wilson, what he does is he looks at ants and he extrapolates out from that and observes the human race and humanity and what's going on in the world. And he said the following: the problem facing humanity is we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. What he means by that is that when we stood upright on the savannah 10,000 years ago, our emotional register and bandwidth was identical to today's. Love, hate, anxiety, confidence, frustration, beguile, curiosity, so it goes on. Nothing has changed, just like the ant houses. The institutions have been set up based on, in the last whatever decades, sometimes hundreds of years, to serve a certain way communities operate. And they've been very slow, if not completely, not changed at all, to adapt to the changing pace of technology. And then all this frustration happens, and there's not a single client I can think of in advertising, in my years in advertising, the last 3 years, who haven't said, we need a transformation agenda, which is code for help, digital revolution, we don't know what to do, or we're about to get Ubered. How was it? Mark Pritchard is the global CMO at Procter & Gamble, said, if we're not careful, we'll get Ubered. So it became a verb. There's a fantastic, what I love about watching the tech thing happen is that there's this premise that technology is going to replace humanity, that we're somehow going to change because of technology. We're never going to change. That's just a biological fact. It's not obstinacy, nor is it old Git saying, please forget it under the day. We just won't. It's not going to happen. Technology serves humanity, not the other way around. And if you stand by the belief that we function through emotions, then when you hear a song, if you see something beautiful, a song can make you cry. There's something in us, it's just how we are. Very few things that can actually make you cry. Eric Schmidt of Alphabet, previously Google, was interviewed by in the States recently, and they said, hey, isn't it great that code writing is now part of the curriculum in high school? And he said, you're joking, the last thing we need are code writers. What we need is storytellers. Because humanity, there is a sense that that technology has got caught on some sort of autism spectrum and has forgotten what it's serving. And that sounds really disrespectful and aggressive, but if you just unpick that for a moment, it's not meant to be aggressive or disrespectful, it's just, I think, absolutely true. What I'm trying to say is the time will come, because we are sentient beings, the time will come, and maybe it's happening now, maybe it's not, the time will come and you will do it, when the disruptors will be disrupted. Because it always has done. If you look back in time, the impossible always happens. Oh no, I can imagine General Motors being taken on. Oops. Always happens. So nothing is there forever. And there's this thing, how marketing people like to give labels to generations, and there's a generation called millennials, and they're just a little older than you, so 22 to 37-year-olds. And they, in the last month, have just become the largest spending power demographic in the world. And the Financial Times is running a 6-week thing on them. Really fascinating. And all the clients are, we've got to get millennials, they're digital natives. It's kind of interesting. There are more millennials in China than the entire US population. And similarly, it's skewed massively in places like India and Iran as well. And the thing that millennials the influence they're having on economies and on businesses is huge, born largely out of their desire for community and experience over their desire for things. And you've seen it all around you. So shared workspace is just exploded. I was in Lisbon the other day doing a talk, and it was at Second Home, which is amazing, because it's a shared workspace based on the premise that plants are really good for you. So you go and you think you're on a set of Tarzan or something. It's unbelievable, but it's really cool. WeWork is now worth £2 billion. Membership clubs and festivals and social tolerance are all forces that are undeniable, that are happening in the social sphere, very prevalent in the workplace. Which leads me to reason to be cheerful number 3. We're sentient beings, that's all very well, Robert. So what are we going to do about it? I'll tell you what we're going to do about it. It's time for leadership. And on the premise that you've been schooled, within your own otherwise, in the art of leadership. And by the way, when I say leadership, that could just be thought leadership. It could be leading a team. It could be leading a company. Or in Jack Perry's case, it could be leading a country. Heaven forbid, eh? It is osmotic, as I said earlier. I did a lot of work with David Miliband, a great friend of Jack's. Used to be Tony Blair's foreign minister, now is the CEO of International Rescue, not to be confused with Thunderbirds. It's the refugee, amazing operation in helping refugees. And he came, I asked him to address the agency some years ago, and I said, he said, what do you want me to talk about? I said, I want to talk about leadership. Because I was worried that some of my teams were being too servile in their service industry and not leading the conversation and the agenda. And he broke it into three really simple things, which I think when you look at it through this lens, and then you look at every leader you can think of, here and abroad, and you go, oh my God. The first is history. He's talking about political leader, but I think it comes first. First thing is history. What is your history? In other words, what are your credentials to be here as a leader? What have you done? Second thing is, what's your ideology? What's your story? What's your narrative? What are you going to do? And thirdly is personality. Do you connect with your audience? History, ideology, personality. Now, do a quick run through all those leaders, eh? Mrs. May, get in there. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not going to go there for chapter 3. The point about leadership in millennial life is it's moved from power to influence. Very important shift. So it moved from telling people what to do, and the big, oh, the boss is here, and they're going to tell me what to do. Millennials go, yeah, that's really interesting. Hang on, oh, there we go, how about that? You do, literally, people go, I'm not playing, I'm out. Off they go to the next thing. Doesn't work like that anymore. You can't just tell people what to do. It's moved from telling people what to do to choreographing minor collisions. That's how people say, what do you do as a CEO of advertising? I choreograph collisions. What do you mean? I get people who are very different, have very different viewpoints. I put them in a room and we stare at the same problem and something alchemical happens. You wouldn't get to a drumming gorilla to sell Cadbury chocolate if you got the same people in the room all the time who think the same, do the same, talk the same. It just doesn't happen. You need diversity. Diversity of thought, background, attitude, everything. You need some nutters to have a really good and I think, you know, in times of change, you know, revolution has always started with language. It's the language that starts, it's the narrative that starts, then the killing and the whatever happens. If you want change, you've got to work out the narrative of what it is you want to change. And it can't just be strongest aim on leadership. That isn't a narrative. And leadership, sorry. And leadership, and here's the other thing. In today's world, leadership starts and ends with purpose. Companies with purpose are the ones that attract the best talent and seem to do the best. Martin Luther King did not say, I have a business plan. He started with a dream. And it sounds airy-fairy. It's anything but. It's anything but. There's a guy called Jan Koum, who was a co-founder of WhatsApp in 2009, and you might have read recently. I mean, he sold to Facebook with his partner in 2014, so 5 years in, for $19 billion. Good work, lad. But their purpose was privacy, the whole point about encrypted messages that were on your phone, not on the company's server. That was their point. Now, Facebook, earlier this year, told them, no, we're going to release some of that privacy stuff so that we can sell data on. We see revenue streams from the data of WhatsApp. And he said, and the EU has got a legal case against Facebook on this point as we speak. But what he did on the 1st of May this year was to say, I'm out of here. Now, he made half of 19 billion, so he can afford to, but he walked out because that's not what I'd set this up for. Our purpose was this, and you're just smashing it. I'm not playing. I massively respect that. Millennials are changing the nature of leadership, and the next lot, by the way, Generation X, you didn't know that, that's you lot. I mean, it's stupid names, but all, I think what's going to happen is it's going to accelerate more through even greater use of technology. You know, it is good to do good. It is good to do good. There's modern brands, as I said, I've worked with a venture capitalist group, and we get these startups. And we regularly hear from young tech startups and other startups, they'd say, well, we need the 3 Fs, not the 3 Fs, the 3 Fs. The first one is form. What's the aesthetic? We live in an iconographic world where design is very, very important. It's got to have an aesthetic. So what's the form? Second F is function. Does it work? You can't get away with doing something when it doesn't work. And the third F is philanthropy. What are we giving back? Where is the reciprocity? Because if we don't have that third F, we'll have short-lived. That is how That is how companies are being viewed by venture capitalists, and investors are looking at it going, yeah, but what's your philanthropic agenda? I think that's kind of cool. Tesla and Uber are two new and exciting companies. Tesla's getting a hard time at the moment because the Model 3 is delayed and they don't make any profit. They do, however, you know, Elon Musk has got 59 billion market capitalization, which is bigger than General Motors. But apart from that, what he did through his purpose of sustainable mobility was to set an agenda for an entire category. That is purpose. What Uber has done is used a really clever technology we all use for service, but it's a land grab. It's a category land grab. It's just about money. I feel that about Uber. I've got loads of respect for Tesla. And maybe that's just me. So, a couple of caveats, 3 bits of advice. Caveats are, you have been hardwired to believe that the world is genuinely interested in what you have for breakfast. It's not. Second bit is that life isn't Tinder. You can't have what you want when you want it. And there's a lot of problems at London Business School, for example, saying, well, we have a lecture up in, a site visit to the Rolls-Royce factory up in Crewe. We've got to get the 5 o'clock train. No, I can't do that. No, I'm out tonight. No, I can't do that. No, I've got a social. And then literally it's happening. And these are business school people. These are in their mid-20s. It's a really big problem. There is absolutely no escaping hard work. Malcolm Gladwell talked about the 10,000 hour rule. You're not really brilliant at something until you've done it for 10,000 hours in a book called Blink. And it is true, unfortunately. And the other one is mistakes will happen. The co-founder of quantum physics defined an expert as someone who had made every mistake possible in their chosen field. Mistakes are a good thing, they're not failure. And it's got to embrace them. And you know, it's that thing of fail fast, learn fast, learn fast, fix fast. Those are caveats. The advice is really simple. Be an optimist, and nothing is impossible. Be yourself, which I've mentioned, and try to get to a point where you enjoy work. So be choiceful, because enjoying work is really good. You spend a lot of time doing it. Take charge. Lead. And finally, and this is something I did, Lord Adonis was spectacular dropping names yesterday, so I'll drop one. I've only got one. I did a lot of work with Gordon.